Abed, seal the doors. Nobody leaves until this pen shows up.
I don't like this.
Yeah, tell it to the pen you might have. Gwynnifer, hi. Yeah, it's me. I can't make it. Well, tell your disappointment to suck it. I'm doing a bottle episode.
Yeah, so this is TV Episodes Explained, the bottle episode. So let me know in the comments below, what's your favorite bottle episode? Is it your favorite episode of the show? It very well could be, and I want to talk about why. So what actually is a bottle episode? If you're like me, if you're younger, you're probably familiar with Community and the fact that they talk about bottle episodes quite a bit. But even before that, in doing my research, it sort of came out of the 60s, and there's sort of two theories, and I'm not sure which one I believe more. One is Wikipedia is arguing the Outer Limits came up with it, and it was sort of, we need to pull an episode out of a bottle the way we pull a genie out of a bottle. Consequently, at Star Trek land, also in the 60s, there was the ship in a bottle. Everything is contained inside the bottle that is the ship. I'm more apt to believe the second one anyway, because it makes more sense for production. Because if you think about a TV show, every episode gets a budget and a time allotment to make the episode. And something really expensive like Star Trek, for instance, some of those episodes, because they're so big, because there's so many sets and so many characters and so many special effects, the budgets and the time constraints become massive. And so you need some sort of way to offset it. You can't just keep going to the network to ask for more money. That's where things like clip shows or bottle episodes come in. I'll do a whole different episode on clip shows, I promise. But in this case, bottle episodes, they're trimming down. They're trying to make the least resource-intensive episode as possible to put as much time and money into a later, sort of more favorite episode. So the bottle episode is kind of the redheaded stepchild of the show. They usually have only one or two sets, and it's the standing sets, which means they're sets that are already built. In the case of Star Trek, again, it's usually the bridge of the Enterprise, and you're also using just the main characters and the main cast, and usually only a few if possible. Weirdly enough, this is not unlike some of our favorite auteur filmmakers right now. This is how they got their start, not in TV, but into sort of the minimalized production. Think of Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs. It was one location with just a handful of actors, sort of just not a lot of, actual real visual set pieces. And the same way Edgar Wright with A Fistful of Fingers, which was an homage to gunslinger movies in the 50s and 60s. Again, one location, minimum cast, minimum effects, all very contained. And also from a writing aspect, bottle episodes are a little bit different because you can't rely on sort of outside sources. You have to rely on, character interactions and motivations and sort of the simplicity of what the sort of the bare bones of the show is. A lot of times this reflects in higher rated episodes because the writers get more time to really dig into the characterization and sort of all that kind of unfolding. I'm a big believer where story comes from character, so a character has an emotional moment which makes them make an emotional choice which drives the plot forward. This is the opposite of, plot down sort of writing where the plot dictates characters' reactions, and so the characters are always sort of left on the back foot and they're not actually making choices. But what bottle episodes can do for writers is it's a challenge, because once you strip away all the extra stuff, you still are stuck with just the show itself and sort of what constitutes the show and the characters and what makes it feel real. And so a lot of times something that's too small for a regular episode visually or too big for a regular episode because it requires too much character building or sort of nuance or sort of intensity, that's right for the bottle episode, because all you have is characters, specifically actors, interacting with each other, and it can get very intense very quickly. If you just stay on this frame long enough, things get really intense really quickly, especially if you're doing a push-in. Also from a writing standpoint, if you're going to do a spec script of a show, which is in the fashion, try to write a bottle episode, which is to say don't bring in something the show doesn't already have. If you're doing a spec on Always Sunny in Philadelphia, you don't put them in not Philadelphia. You keep them in the bar. You keep them at one of their apartments, the standing sets, the established characters, the sort of the norms of the show. So strengths of a bottle episode, very straightforward. It's about character, which is usually why you come to TV to begin with, and so bottle episode is the most distilled version of that. Consequently, it's also very stripped down. You don't have other stuff you can lean on. It's just intensity of characters and sort of dredging up storylines and character interactions that may have been sort of just a small point of a small episode. This is the episode where you can really pay those moments off in a really big way. My brain also goes to Breakfast Club, again, a feature film, not technically a bottle episode because it's a movie, but the entire thing taking place in one school location. Yeah, and you do get the emotional intensity that movie is so famous for. In addition to bottle episodes having this intensity, you do have other things happening. Like there's usually a very early on in the episode explanation of why everybody's bottled, locked in, or trapped, or there's a ticking clock. Other spins on bottle episodes, clip shows, which will be its own thing, Groundhog Day episodes, where everything resets. Locked in, a oneer, which is a one take. I think those are technically bottle episodes, but if you actually think about it, they probably took more time and resources than a regular episode, whereas a bottle episode, the whole plan is to save resources to give to other episodes. So yeah, bottle episodes are more the guy that passes the ball than the actual one trying to score the goal. And what's crazy is because bottle episodes give you time to sort of unfold characters, peel away the onion a little bit, you do sort of get a deeper understanding, a more intimate relationship with the characters because you see them sometimes in real time, dealing with something purely emotional without having the outside forces, adjust their behavior. Some weaknesses for bottle episodes. They're not going to look fancy. You can get away with it. Again, I point to Edgar Wright and Tarantino as examples of still making it look cinematic, still making it look satisfying, but at the end of the day, it's people talking, it's people interacting, and that does end up being a little mundane, especially if things are underwritten. Traditionally, bottle episodes are sort of an afterthought in favor of some bigger episode, and so sometimes they might not even have enough time to write a proper script for a bottle episode, or the script is just harder to break because some scripts are actually harder to break. And at the end of the day, with TV schedules, the script has to go out at some point, and some scripts are just never finished, or at least undercooked. And I think it was much more of a thing when almost every show had, 22 plus episode seasons, whereas 10 is sort of a more common thing now. And so there's more time to more satisfyingly cook a TV episode. That's just a theory though. I wasn't there for the long running series. So some examples of bottle episodes. Any season of Star Trek, any version of Star Trek, because Star Trek is such an expensive show, there's going to be very special episodes, which again will be a thing I talk about in a different episode. There's going to be this kind of episode, that kind of episode, and eventually you're going to have to cut costs. You're going to have to put a bottle episode in there. A lot of times, especially in Star Trek and these other long-running shows, bottle episodes are kind of filler shows, and so they're self-contained. You can put them anywhere. That's less of a thing now with the shorter seasons because bottle episodes do seem a little bit more intentional, but yeah. And then there's Seinfeld, the Chinese restaurant. Seinfeld has a bunch. I think Chinese restaurant is sort of the strongest one and the most obvious one because it's literally they're just waiting to be seated at the Chinese restaurant. Breaking Bad had the episode The Fly, which I would argue is the strongest episode in the entire series, but it's literally Walt and Jesse just in the lab trying to get this one single fly. As they lose their minds, they spiral out of control and also, deal with other stuff because again, bottle episodes are so good at dredging up sort of beefs and unresolved stuff that come to a head when you're literally locked in a room with somebody, locked in an elevator with somebody, stuck in a car with somebody, stuff comes out. Friends had a million of them. I think the one that everybody points to is the one where no one's ready. Again, they're just literally in the apartment and people are just delaying the inevitable, and the bit is they're never going to get there. As the beginning, I have to reference Community because I think Community, more than any other show, really calls to attention the idea of the bottle episode and what works about it and also what doesn't work. In the case of Abed, who's autistic and genuinely doesn't understand facial expressions. And so the fact that he even describes it as wall-to-wall nuance, and so he has nothing to offer. I think an actually stronger episode than the cooperative calligraphy episode, Remedial Chaos Theory, which happens later in the show, which is where they do the dice roll and there's, 6 realities that Abed explores, including creating sort of the darkest timeline and that whole universe that it built. I was going to add New Girl's first bottle episode to the list, but when I actually went to check and see what it was, I found it to be season 4, episode 17, Spider Hunt, which is pretty late, so I don't even know if that counts. But the reason I was going to try to add New Girl to this ongoing series as a touchstone is New Girl seems to have every kind of episode. I chalk it up to the writers and the showrunner being just a fan of television. So that's what it is, bottle episodes. You're trapped, you're stuck, and it's time to just hash it out, and it's time to have character emotions. It is what it is. Sometimes it's a drag, sometimes it's the strongest episode of the show, because if the writers can get it right, they can get it right. But that's what it is. What's your favorite bottle episode? Do you think bottle episodes are good? Are we in a 10 episode season where bottle episodes are irrelevant now? Let me know. Like, share, subscribe. I'll catch you next time.